Hey everyone, welcome to M.I.A. support group. My name is Robert A. Douglas. I am the facilitator of this group with my co-host Clarence, and we are here to facilitate a group that supports mental health and supports a journey on mental health, given these tough times in our lives, but given everyday lives and situations as well. Everyone needs some support in order to be able to go forward. Now, be mindful that this is a support group. This is not a group that takes place or precedence over any medical or professional advice. If you've been given any medical or professional advice or need to seek any medical or professional advice, we have always advise and advocate that you do so. This here is strictly for support in situations that we may be going through and be able to carry on with an encouraging word going forward. I have my co-host here with me, Pastor Clarence Jackson, who will introduce himself. What's going on, CJ? What's up, bro?
What's up, man? How you feeling?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm stressed because not stressed, but I'm worried because I don't know what to believe with the corona stuff, right? So
Mm,
it's a lot of stuff that you want to go and you want to entertain and you want to do these things, but you just can't, right? And so just being in closed doors for people can be a lot,
yeah.
and that a lot of people like to be out. I have a friend who likes to be out because he had so much trauma in his household
Mm,
growing up that he never wanted to go home.
mm,
And so it was so much for him to deal with that he almost like never, like, even though he has his own place with, it's nice, it's comfortable, he never wants to be home.
wow.
And so what do you do when you know somebody has had so much trauma starting from childhood in the
Yeah.
home that
Yeah.
even though the people who caused the trauma is no longer there, the trauma itself, the memory of it itself still lingers on. And
Yeah.
so that's something I want to think about. Like I think, and I want to know, like in the comments, like what has anybody else had to experience a trauma from like childhood or from home? What you would identify as home, and say, yeah, this is why I'm not comfortable doing.
Yeah,
You know
man.
what I mean?
Absolutely. And I want to piggyback off that, and that's important. Listen, if you are watching and you want to comment anonymously, if you look on the screen right now, you'll see the web address for you to comment anonymously, or if you have a cell phone, you can scan that QR code below to be able to comment anonymously, to be able to share situations that you may be able to relate to or ask questions that you may not want to ask um, publicly. Please feel free to use that link. But Clarence, one thing that I wanted to talk about specifically was in relation to what you said is that trauma and living in that really concentrated situation where you can't really escape it, right? So of
Right.
course, I grew up, in that type of situation. Of course, many kids right now are going through that situation, with school
Hmm.
being out, and with parents really being their home teachers. So I can imagine that there's a lot of that going on in the atmosphere right now. And childhood trauma is something that we touched on in the video this week as well, and the effects it has later on. Um, so it's important. I'm glad you brought that up because even now, I mean, you aren't living in a traumatic situation, but it still has some type of toiling effect on you,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, trauma comes in, like someone said to me once, in ebbs and flows, right?
Mm,
And so, well, the effects of trauma, let me say it that way, comes for me in ebbs and flows. And so, to have experienced trauma and then had to have rebuild or relive from trauma has
yeah.
caused a lot of damage to not just me, but to people that have been in my life who, in many instances, were not there to harm me any further, but because of past trauma, because of past hurts and pains, you find yourself not taken to the people who really do care, who really do love you. And so, yeah, I can identify with that for real.
Hmm.
We got any comments?
Comment here from Amber Smith that says, "I never thought about that." And I guess she's talking about in regards to the trauma in relation to what you talked about being in that highly and concentrated toxic environment, and what that could do, to someone in that situation. I remember I was just talking about this the other day to a friend, how childhood trauma. I suffered a lot of childhood trauma, but specifically one around like my mom not being there. Right, my mom was addicted to drugs, and she died when I was 10. So she never had a real hold in my life, and that was traumatic for me because everyone you went to school with, they might not have had a dad, right? But chances are they had a
Yeah,
mom.
chances are they had a mom
Um,
somewhere.
and it's like, what's wrong with you that you don't have one? And so that trauma carrying on into adulthood has led me through a lot of situations where I'd rather not have been, right? Searching for some things that I needed from my mom that I was trying to get in illegitimate ways. So that trauma
Right.
can begin to multiply itself in a way that becomes damaging, right?
Mm.
I have somebody saying in the comments that they can't really hear me. If you Can you turn your my mic is all the way up. Can you turn your headphones up? But yeah, Clarence, I thought that was important to touch base on, because, like I said, so many people are dealing with that right now, just sitting in traumatic situations. And what is that going to leave us for in regards to our future of tomorrow, bro? Like how is this going to impact the generation of tomorrow, given the situation that we're dealing with now with COVID-19 and the many different curves that America is going in terms of education, in terms of how we meet public need, in terms of how we interact with one another when we're out in public, right? All of this has this traumatic ripple effect. I'm glad that you brought that up, and I have a comment that says that is so true, talking about, I guess, the traumatic impact that has a ripple effect later on in life. And how do we curb that? Clients, like, what types of triggers um, do you see maybe in students working with a population that's juvenile incarcerated? What type of triggers have you seen show up that I guess cause people to reenact traumatic experience and begin to respond in ways that where you can clearly see that the trauma has set in. So Clarence, yeah, we were speaking about trauma and triggers around things that cause people to have traumatic experiences. I was talking about M.I.A. and his mother passed. And anytime my teacher would say to him something like, "I'm going to call your mother," I would watch him have a traumatic
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
I would watch him go through the situation where he wouldn't even recall what happened once he came
Right.
back. And I remember being like that. Like, I can tell you so many instances where it was like I did that when I came back. And so I think the importance of the video today and the importance of the topic today is to try to talk about ways to disarm those triggers around the trauma in order to be able to experience some growth in that. What's your thought around that? While we wait for some comments to come through, I know we had some live issues, but we're back on now. I hope you all come back. Please be sure to do so. If you knew someone that was here and didn't come back as a result of the mix-up, please invite them back to the live. Please make sure we use the anonymous link at the bottom of the screen if you'd like to submit an anonymous comment. We're going to keep pushing forward. So, Clarence, what is it? What's your thought around that?
Um, I was sharing. I don't know if it came through, but I was talking about how one instance I had with a kid who spit on me while I was in school, and
He
it wasn't because of
spat
anything.
or he sat?
He spat upon me.
I just didn't know which. I know.
Yeah, he spat
Mm.
up on me. Is how the writer would put it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Now, walk me through that though. Like, go ahead.
So, um, I'm in the classroom. I just get there, and he doesn't realize coming in. So as I'm coming into the classroom, he and some of his friends are talking about something. And so I'm like, whatever. So as soon as I get in there, he then says, Mr. Jackson, he included me into, and then I just stand there because here I am in awe, all because I would not engage in
Mhm.
something that he had said. And so when it all came to a head, I'm walking out of the room as he, is being detained as it would, and he lunged at me and spat at me. And so when he did it, it hit my pant and my shoe. But I realized I didn't do anything to the kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He had already had somebody ignore him, or somebody in a powerful situation forget that he existed. And a lot of people don't like being ignored.
Right.
That's you can bring the crazy out somebody if you ignore them. I'm telling you, man. A lot of people I've met, they'll tell you quick, don't ignore me, And so,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
that's how I am, bro. Don't do that to me. Don't don't ignore me. And
right,
and it's important because that stems back to trauma. Like, my childhood was much of an ignorance, being ignored by the adults around me. And so a lot of times it was rambunctious actions that would get my get me the attention that I needed. And so a lot of times, and that's important that you mentioned that a lot of times I would trigger my own trauma because I needed to feel something, you know,
right,
because I
right,
didn't know what else to feel. So a lot of times, if I needed the attention that I needed to feel, I made sure that uh, I would trigger that myself and in myself. So I think it's important that you shared that. We have some comments that's talking about we had some tough audio issues. I think they're fixed now, but someone says sucks that you it said we missed the first half of the story. Sucks you got spit on, my friend. I have close experiences as well.
mm,
This is from an educator, someone who used to work
thanks,
at
man.
school with me. So yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people have those types of experiences as well. One thing that I was talking about with a teacher friend of mine this week was what she brought up in regards to secondhand trauma. And what she said was that, teachers often experience trauma by dealing with the trauma of their students and dealing with the trauma around family relations, and different situations in terms of how families carry on in a professional setting, in an educational setting, and how and that's a culture shock. In turn, you don't have to be, you can be black, and if you're not from an impoverished environment, when you come in an education setting like that, where education isn't prioritized, it can be secondary traumatic, right, experiences. So what do you think about that, man? When she said that to me, I never really thought about it, right? Because I come from poverty, I come from trauma. So when I taught, it was the run of the muck for me. It was a way of navigating and me teaching something that I just knew. I knew my way around poverty and trauma. Is what my life was, rooted in. But someone who, and I'm not going to say because everyone experiences trauma, but someone who isn't at a baseline of trauma, that can be traumatic. Dealing with students who don't know when they're going to eat, to students whose mother is prioritizing, a relationship over their, role as a parent, and now you're thrusted into a position where you have to make a decision for people. And I know you're experiencing that now, especially with your position in DC, doing what you're doing. Have you experienced any of that type of secondary trauma, just being in that position?
Oh yeah, man. So here's how I'll put it: losing my mom when I did was a traumatic experience for me, right? And I'm probably going to allude to this a lot, as we work through these conversations. Losing mom was so traumatic that I describe it as having open heart surgery,
Mm,
where they take your heart out your body and bury it away, and then close you up and expect you to live with that little bit that's left.
mm,
And imagine having to go back to work or go back to being a husband or go back to being a father
yeah.
with that on your mind and with that heavy weight. And anybody who knew my mother knows that she was a very integral part in everything that I had going on even as an adult.
Mm,
And so when I look at some of my students and I realize that many of them are in the places that they are in not because they in within themselves innately are bad kids.
right.
That's not the problem. The problem is what incubated them. What sometimes you look at the parent will come to the school, and I hate to say it this way, and then you look at the child and say, "Oh, okay, cool."
Yeah, I understand. I get it now. I
So
understand.
and so now I understand having had that trauma, and some kids not only have lost their parents with finality like I have, but some of them don't have them physically because they're always on the go doing whatever they're doing,
Mhm.
and so some kids are not able are raising themselves, and so that's traumatic for a child to not have their mother during the time they think they need them the most. And so, absolutely, I can identify with the secondhand trauma that many of my students face atop, you know, just the socioeconomic things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, atop it, not just on top of it. Atop it.
Atop,
Well, somebody said in the comment,
atop.
"Ooh, spit that fire, bro. Trauma like open heart surgery. Love it."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I never had open heart surgery, but I've had a lot of trauma to know, and especially
Me
trauma of losing a mother. You know, like you have. I didn't
Yeah,
lose my mother
absolutely.
nearly as old as you did, but I think it comes with its own traumatic experiences to not have,
Absolutely.
you know, her in adolescence. And I think the most traumatic impact for me around that, and the reason I'll share why I'm bringing this up in a second. The most traumatic impact for me around that is that your mother is the person that um, will never judge you, right? Will
Yeah.
always, no
Yeah.
matter what you do, and within
Yeah.
reason, be there to support you, and to not have that level. No one else is gonna love you unconditionally. That's just and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the fact of humanity.
That's
And
why they
to
call it a mother's love.
and to have to trek through life without that, right? With a bunch of conditional love, um, really starts to skew your perception of how you should operate when you operate within that trauma. And the
Yeah.
reason I say that is because a lot of times adults that we see functioning in a lot of different ways are like alcoholics and drug. Like my mother was doing drugs to bury trauma. She wasn't, this just person that was just so far out there that she just had nothing else to do with life but to just sit around and do drugs. There was a lot of deeply rooted trauma that as adults we just have to begin adulting, right? And to keep
Yeah.
going and not be able to foster the healing for that type of trauma. So we just go through life triggered and triggered and triggered and triggered. And then we learn to say, like, oh, that's just the way I am, right? As opposed to challenging those thoughts and ideas to be able to heal. And it's the hardest thing, I've ever done in my life. So I don't ever want to speak on it as if it's just something, so easy to do. But in order to lessen the effect of trauma, um, you have to address what triggers that trauma, and not just stay surface level on the stance of trauma. Clarence, you frozen?
No, no. I was listening, but I was
It might
looking
be a
at something.
lag.
Okay. I thought we had another comment.
We do. So Jeanette Mason said, anyone ever heard of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences?
Adverse childhood experiences.
No, I haven't. But if it's something that you want to educate us on in the comments, and maybe leave some resources, definitely be able to. Would love to add that to the description of the video once it posts, to give some education around that. It sounds really interesting. When I get off the live, I'm going to look it up. Um, but so
Um.
go ahead.
Yeah. No, no, no. I was just going to share that a lot of kids, or a lot of us, are still dealing with things that um, we inflicted upon ourselves. Like, think about it in such a way where, many of us have made bad choices, and unfortunately, that choice led to a bad outcome.
Mm.
And that experience was so traumatic within and of itself. You say, I shouldn't have gone out, and I don't want to beat up on anybody, but you'll say, I shouldn't have gone out, or I shouldn't have done, such and so. And the biggest thing that you hear, if I can just be candid for a moment, the biggest thing that you hear that people are traumatically affected by are past relationships, right? And so you might not be mad that you took a certain path over another one, or you chose your kids over or whatever, but you're mad at him because of all that he or she has done to you, and so you can't move on to a new relationship, a new situationship, or whatever the ship is, because you're so stuck on that trauma. And so, for me, it's how do you let go of yesterday's hurt from a relationship? That a lot of us, nobody told us to walk into that. That was all us,
Well, I don't
right?
I
You
don't
know what I
know.
mean?
I don't know. I disagree with that.
Go
Um,
ahead.
and before I had my own situation in my life, I might have agreed with you. I might have agreed with you, but I know that I've ended up in situations where I was um, responding to trauma and unbeknownst, right? Because a lot of times we have a good way of convincing ourselves of what's going on in our mind and what's really happening in our mind and what really is, reality. And I think once you dip into that pool of, and this could just be me, this could just be a part of my diagnosis because that is, a characteristic of tailoring, on that line of reality and what, you conceive in your brain. But I don't necessarily think we bring trauma on ourselves or the consequences of trauma on ourselves any more than if I got shot right now and my body went into shock, my body will have a negative response from me going into shock, right? My body didn't control getting shot. It did control going into shock, but it did the best it could that it thought it would to preserve me. And so I just take a different stance on that. What do you think about that?
Um, I think I think you're right, but I wanna add the caveat in there that I think would help with the person who asked about ACEs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when she said it, it triggered, or whomever asked, it had triggered a study from school that I remember, but I could not remember. You know how you can't recall, and so I
Mm-hmm.
quickly did my research. And adverse childhood experiences is when, and listen to me, bro. My children, and I guess how I can understand what you're saying. I guess my children are going to experience adverse childhood experience, things that happened to them that was not their fault,
Mm-hmm.
but they still had to live
It's
through
their
it.
problem.
For example, their mother's some substance abuse, or their parents having mental illness. And so I may not have. So, for example, my mother had mental illness, right? And so, or struggled with mental illness. And so many of the things that she has done has affected me and my siblings in such a way. And so now that my children are not the cause of, neither are they the going to be affected by mine and their mother's divorce,
Mm-hmm.
they still have experiences. Even my child now says, "Daddy, I wish I could live in a house with all of my family." I know what she means.
Mm-hmm.
She means she wants
Mm-hmm.
mommy and daddy under the same roof. And I can understand that because I had the privilege of having that. And so I think I can retract my statements and say there are instances where I'm sorry. I hope I answered. I hope I did.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, bro. Um, the comments is blowing up. I want to get to some of them. Let me scroll back
Well,
up.
go in your own room.
Huh? Oh. Minaj said that that is one of my weaknesses is letting go of some past issues.
On my way.
To speak about what you said in regards to letting go of past relationships and situations to be able to heal from and be able to move away from. I see you being a dad. um, so she's, Minaj, yeah, that's a big weakness for a lot of us. Moving past issues. I know for me, moving past issues in terms of judging myself is my big issue. Because I should have known better than to be traumatized by some things. I consider myself smarter than what I am sometimes. So I appreciate you
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
commenting
yeah.
that. Shut up. Um, Jeanette Mason got back to us with Dr. Nadine Burke Harris has a TED talk about ACEs. She discusses how trauma can be so deeply seated that it alters DNA in us and our offspring. She focused on children, but the same is true for adults. That's really important because, and I'm going to watch that and I'm going to put that in the descriptions because actually that's part of my diagnosis. How going through trauma for people who don't know, I have a book called On the Border. It talks about me being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder a few years ago. And what it talks about is going through,
Yeah.
it's a disorder that you're not born with, but you experience so much trauma that the blood vessels in your brain start to shorten, and you start to, over time, get less oxygen to your brain. So your brain always feels like it's in a panic state. It needs to make decisions
Yeah.
based on trauma at all times. So I'm interested in looking on that, and it definitely is the same for adults because a lot of times, if I just take a couple of deep breaths, I can formulate different ideas and thoughts and really start to ease myself, in terms of that anxiety. Clarence, did you want to say something to that effect before I move on to the next comment?
No, you go ahead. That was good.
Okay. Clarence, you got this one. Amber Smith said, but what actual advice do you have for not blaming trauma and taking ownership of your own life? Not blaming your bad behavior on your trauma.
What advice would we give for not
For,
blaming our
for,
bad
yeah, for
behavior on
basically
our
not
trauma?
saying like, oh, I did that because I was traumatized as a kid. I get what she's saying. I think
Yeah,
the statement about
yeah,
trauma could be mistaken as lack of accountability. That's not what I meant, but
yeah. A
I'm glad
lack
that
of
you asked
judgment.
that question.
Yeah,
So
lack
Clarence,
of
go ahead
judgment.
and answer that.
What I would say is this: is you would have to use what we like to call discernment. And I know that that sounds real churchy and preachy, but for example, when you're the key player in the decision. I ask a lot of the people that I have the privilege of sitting down with and talking to. I ask them, who's the most valuable player in that equation, or who was the most common multiple in
Mhm.
that equation, and they'll tell me because I knew I was in this and I knew I was in that. And I knew that in both of those instances, I was not doing well. And so now I feel as if things are falling on me
Mhm.
when necessarily you have honestly led yourself into this direction. And it kind of goes into some of the things that I want to talk about later for the mental moment because I wanted to say, real
No,
quick
hold
that
it. No, hold it.
I'm not going to say it. I
Okay.
want to make sure I finish off her statement real quick. I wanted to say, like to you, that there are some things that, like for example, and let me give you a real cold example. Studies have proven that many of us marry our parent, and so if you're a woman, you'll probably marry your father like her and or acts like her, someone who looks like him and or acts like him. And so sometimes your trauma has led you into that. I get that. We understand that. But, you know, other things, and I won't get into that, I think that when you're blaming that on the fact that, oh, I wasn't raised right. No, you was wrong. It's discernment. You was
to,
wrong.
to those viewers that are commenting in the anonymous chat, we are going to get to you. I see them. Clarence, do you have that open? If not, I can
I
read
got it
them.
open now.
Okay. Let me let's get
Definitely got it open
let's
now.
get through a few more on the regular chat really quickly. So Zishara says, I get what Clarence says. It's like being in a relationship and not leaving when you know it's time to go. The first time is
No,
on them. Every time after that is all on you.
listen, bro. I appreciate you saying that, and I'm not trying to browbeat or downgrade anybody. But here's what I had to learn. Can I just share this and get it out? Not what I got to say later, but what. Here's what you got to know. In order to get over trauma, you have to feel the pain first,
Mm,
right? Some of us don't know we're in a traumatic situation because we keep saying the pain that we feel is from something else.
mm.
You have to realize you stubbed your toe on the dresser. It wasn't the dog, right? It was on the dress. And so now you have to identify. Now I know what the pain is. I can identify where the pain in my body is, and now I can begin to treat it. A lot of us keep kicking out one guy, bringing in another one, and keep scratching his saying, "Well, he acted just like this also," or kicking out one girl, bringing in another one, and scratching his head. Well, how come she act like the one? Because you have not allowed yourself to deal with the pain, get through it, get over that person, and move on. And I promise you're gonna be able to say, you know what? I finally found my rib. I finally found my guy, or whatever your traumatic thing is. I'm sorry, that was a big tangent, but go
No,
ahead.
no, you good. You good. Ava says what? Sorry, Ava says what suggestions do you all have to move past the issues, even the ones that are not your fault? Really, again, I just want to make sure that we say that this is again not a site to give any professional
Yeah.
medical advice. This is simply to share things that have worked for us, things that we have studied that are scientifically proven and are medically proven, but we are not again in the medical field. So what I would suggest to move past the issues that are not your fault but are your problem is to first realize that they are your problem. um, you have to realize that you have a problem. That's the first step to anything, in terms of overcoming, is acknowledging the fact that there is a problem. There's a problem with how I judge relationships and how I judge situations. I have to be mindful of that. So when I'm doing business with someone, or when I'm just when I think someone is just having casual conversation with me, I have to be mindful of the fact that I don't have that governor in place, that will be able, when I'm drinking, I don't have that governor in place that says that you need to stop now, right? So knowing that about myself is being able to put interventions in place, to be able to deal with those issues that aren't my fault. I don't have not have a governor because of my who I come from, right? I come from, alcoholics and people who experience with drugs. So, my tolerance is a lot different, and my DNA is different. So being able to alter that, for myself, would be a suggestion, a concrete suggestion that I would give to you. Clarence, do you have anything you want to share in regards to that?
Um, I guess the only thing I would say to add to what you said was expect, in order to heal from somebody else's hurt, or some that kind of drama or trauma, you have to allow yourself to understand that person may never see it, or they may never see it the way you see it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the same perspective as you. And so in order for you to get over it, stop trying to convince somebody how they hurt you, and just let them know that they hurt you. Don't tell you, because you're going to run yourself crazy if they don't just break down and say, you know what, you were right. And so I hope I'm answering that, or maybe I'm answering a question I see in the anonymous section.
No, yeah. Well, just hold on to that for a second. We got a few more in this one. Then I want to jump over to that one. Um, Someone said I agree with Rad, Robert A. Douglas. I like
Hmm.
when people agree
We
with
need to
me.
get a point tally at the bottom. You're gonna win every time, bro.
I'm harder on myself about situations I should have been smarter in. Man, I tell you, and that's another thing too, because I realized something about myself going through a very, intense healing process, is that recognizing your potential and recognizing where you are today is very important. And that's going to allow you to have a lot more grace with yourself when you're going through this healing process, and when you're trying to heal areas of your life. I'm in my mind, I'm the smartest guy in the streets. You can't pull, many things past me, but I got outsmarted by people that I'm insulted by. And so being able to be on guard with that and being able to now learn from that and grow and push forward. You just can't be as hard on yourself as I am. I hope you aren't. And that's something that I'm still growing past and growing through because I know my potential and I know where I'm going and I know what I'm capable of. But I also know that I have some work to do to get there. And I will get there, and I get closer every day. So I encourage you to take on that growth mindset and to be able to look yourself in the mirror every day and confidently say, I'm better than I was yesterday. And that'll alleviate some of that stress on being hard on yourself.
Yeah, and I just want to say this for you guys who are listening. We're working on something. Robert and I are going to work on something that we can put in your hands
Don't
and be
don't don't
able to
drop it
help
yet.
you.
Don't drop it yet, bro. Just
And so I just want you to know, don't
it's
think that we're
powerful.
not listening. We listen.
It's powerful. And so we're working on some things that's going to be able to give you
Yeah,
tangible results.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
tangible results. Jeanette Mason said, Amber, I think that level of growth is ownership. If a person can't own it, they are probably on a low level of healing. But also, healing is a journey and a hard one, folks don't want to
I
deal.
like that.
Listen, healing is a lifelong journey. And for me, I've spent intense time learning to heal over some things, and I'm still nowhere near where I want to be. And it's so
Right,
frustrating for me
right.
because it's like a muscle. And if you don't work it out, you're going to lose the muscle, and you're going to be, so you're going to succumb to those old behaviors and those old situations. So I think, Jeanette, that's important, and I thank you for being back with us this week as well, and all of you for being back with us this week. I think that level of healing begins with that consistency and knowing that this is a daily process. And it just makes us meet clients want to plug what we're doing more and more. But be on the
Yeah.
lookout for that. We're putting some resources together for you all. But in the meantime, we'll have some resources in the descriptions for you to take advantage of based on this conversation. Clarence, you want to piggyback on anything before I move to the next one?
No, go ahead, go ahead. We want to
Okay.
get through. I don't want to waste nobody's
Yeah.
time.
Tiffany said, I actually was diagnosed with post traumatic stress disorder due to so many traumatic experiences in a short period of time. Caring for my mom and being there when she passed away, etc. I didn't realize how all the traumatic experiences in my life was affecting me until I couldn't sleep and developed into a mini panic attack.
I can understand that. You know what? I wanted to bring this up before. There is a lot of people have are learning, are beginning to learn this. There is a direct correlation between trauma. I keep saying trauma because when I'm teaching this and talking about this, stress and trauma, I put it together and I call it trauma. But anyway, there is
That
a
sound
direct
I
correlation
don't I don't want to
between
laugh there. That sounds like a Italian dish.
it does
Yeah.
like,
Tell me
but it has like
tell me about
sausages on it.
Strama.
Strama. It has sausages on it. But no,
Okay.
I think that a lot of people are learning that there's a direct correlation between their strama or trauma from their youth and with their now health issues. And so she talked about anxiety and having a panic attack. Some people, because of their post traumatic stress disorder, have eaten themselves to death. You see shows like My 600 Pound Life, and when you watch the storyline, you find out, wow, this person didn't just say, I want to eat. There was always a lead up, something that
Built
happened
up.
in the past that was, traumatic for them. And it has caused them to want to be, distant from people. And so I can identify with that wholeheartedly. And I think like even on there, they seek help and they go through the process that they need to go through to get well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Tiffany, I think that's important that you brought that up, and thank you for that because I talk about something in a project that we're working on called cluster trauma. And what cluster trauma is when so many traumatic situations happen at one time that you can't process what's happened. You just have to make decisions. And a lot of times, like burying people and having make decisions with divorce and children and things like that, you don't have any time to really process what's happened. because of the decisions that you have to make. And that's where that post traumatic stress disorder comes in, is when the adrenaline comes down and your brain says, oh, okay, now what just really happened? Um,
Yeah.
and so my advice to you, and it sounds like you've sought some professional help, and that's great. My advice to you is to practice those behavioral, those dialectical behavioral therapy skills that I'm sure you've learned about in therapy. If not, be sure to check the description below to get some resources to tap into. And thank you for sharing that. I used to have experiences with panic attacks. Um, and like right now, my anxiety is like through the roof. Just so you guys see, that's why I always have something over top of me too, Clarence. Just so you know, because my
And you know
anxiety
what? Can
is
I
through
just
the
be
roof,
candid?
bro.
Can I speak candidly for a second?
What?
When we got the shirts, I said to myself, why did we get gray?
There was a
You
business
know what I
decision.
mean?
We had to at the moment.
Yeah, I know, but I realized that because of that reason, I'm like, yo, I don't know, but
See, people
yeah,
people be like, "Oh, he just must like black." No, I get really anxious about everything that I do, and I
yeah,
start to sweat really profusely. And that's a part of that's a part of what we're talking about, and what this isn't something that is like a hot topic or something. Like this is something that we really live, and it's really a lifelong journey. So we thank you all for joining us on this journey. We're not experts in mental health. We're not experts in um,
not at
dealing with
all.
trauma and trigger and things like that. But we've done some things and tried some things to be able to share some resources with you all. Um, Brianna B said, "What do you do when someone else's trauma affects you daily?" Um, do you want to go at that, Clarence, or you want me to first? I don't.
Go ahead, you go first.
Okay. I'm assuming what you mean is that someone else's trauma um, had impacts you. So my trauma used to disable me from having a healthy and professional and productive, not professional, productive relationship with someone. So someone on that other side would be someone dealing with someone who has trauma affecting them daily. There's a good book called "Stop Walking on Eggshells" that I would
Mm,
recommend to you, and it's how to love someone with particular disorders, but it's also trauma induced. It talks about how you can still um, proclaim yourself and be able to be who you are and still love someone who is suffering from trauma. And I know that can be difficult when you're dealing with someone who doesn't recognize the trauma that they're suffering from. That's another level within itself because it's different dealing with someone with trauma that knows it and is working through it and sometimes have lapses, but someone who is completely oblivious to it, like I used to be, and I don't say that in judgment. So I share that fact. At one point in my life, you couldn't tell me that there was anything wrong with any thought process that I had personally. So that's a struggle. And Clarence, do you have any tips on what to do in that situation?
and she says when someone else's
Yeah, someone
traumatic
else is
experience
affected by the trouble, but I mean the trauma, but I guess they're in such close proximity that it impacts her as well.
I think when I think of something like that, I think about you helping someone get over an experience, and you knew the person, or you were there with the person while they were going through it, and so while they're going through it, that you're there getting over it. And what I think that you should do then is find your way to cope, and that can be, I always go back to writing. That can be, praying. That's always a great way to do it. But you have to remember that you're just the support system. You can't allow their baggage to become your load because you're already carrying a lot. And after a while, somebody was messaging me, they break down and cry in the middle of the day because of that reason.
Hmm. And I think that's important too, and Brianna, because before Clarence, had you said that 2 years ago, I would disagree in terms of don't take on that baggage and realize that you are only the support. But that's very important, Brianna, because you can hurt yourself trying to be too much of a support to someone that is in a traumatic state. They say that if someone is in the water, you have to wait until they proclaim that they're drowning before you go save them. Because if you try
Yeah.
to save them any second before, you're putting yourself in danger because they might pull you down too.
Yeah.
So a person has to recognize that they're in danger first,
Yeah.
before you can give full on support. So I
Now,
would
before you move
recommend
on, oh,
always being an advocate for yourself, amidst your support. Always making sure that you are true to you, and make sure that you stand true to what you believe and what takes precedence over your life. Go ahead, Clay.
let me just share this real quick. I'm sorry about that, bro. Um, I always learn, don't help somebody to the point that it hurts you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, let's say, for example, if I can give you another tangible, let's say somebody asks you for $250.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know you have it and they know you have it, but in your mind, you know it's not a matter of getting the money back or not. It's a matter of making sure that you don't give everything you have to
Right.
help to be able to say, that I was a blessing. And I'll even attach that to the church if I can. A lot of people, unfortunately, give all their money to the church and can't afford their daily living. And
Mm-hmm.
they're saying God is going to make a way. He made a way. Remember? Um, he gave, and here you are. And so some of us are so giving and so forgiving that you'll let somebody walk you like a dog before you realize, oh, they playing you. And
Mm-hmm.
so the other thing I wanted to share was, even on an airplane, the flight attendant tells us, in the event that we have to use these, life saving apparatuses,
Mm-hmm. Take care of
secure
you first.
yours first, even before you secure the child next to you. And so sometimes and I know that sounds gruesome and gory, but if you dying and gasping for air, how you gonna help him? And so here you are, then gave all of your savings. You know good and well they ain't gonna give it back, but that is what it is. And now you are now hurting because of your giving. Don't allow yourself to help somebody to the point that it hurts you. Please.
So speaking on that, we have a comment that says, "Was or is Clarence a preacher? You got that cadence in your voice. I keep wanting to throw $1 in the collection plate. Well, we don't take no
Okay.
collection plates over here,
All
but
right. We don't got the plate, but keep listening if you like it. Got my water.
yes, he is. That's why his logo. You'll see his banner soon. That's why he goes by the tagline "Pastor Jacks."
Yeah.
He is planting a church that is online based called Many Nations 2.0. And is in its very infancy stages. He's taken that leap of faith to bring things like what we're talking about now into his realm. The mental health realm is really like what I is my thing, but ministry is what he's passionate about, and ministry in terms of healing the whole person, healing the whole mind. And that's why I partner with him. So yes, he is a member of clergy, and he's planting a millennial church called Many Nations 2.0. We'll be plugging it more as we go along. Clarence, I just wanted to do that for you because I really do believe in what you do. Um,
I appreciate
I
that,
don't want
man.
it to come from your voice. So we're gonna move on. But I'm
Yeah.
not gonna let you
Cause I
comment
would
on
have
that.
never.
I'm
We would
not
have
gonna
moved
let you
right
comment
along.
on that
Thanks,
one.
man.
I'm
I
not gonna let
appreciate
you
that.
comment on that one.
Yeah, we'd have moved right along.
Yeah, I think the difference between facts and excuses is using it to make your behavior okay is an excuse. Recognizing the trauma and making conscious decisions with the knowledge is where it becomes fact. Thus, after that, it can change if they wanted to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 But some people just ain't gonna change. I hate to use poor English, but some people, and if you keep expecting a orange tree to change into a strawberry tree, somebody in the equation is
Strawberry
the one
grows
that
on
don't look like they
vines.
got good sense. Huh?
Strawberries grow on vines.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, an apple tree,
There we go. There
an
we go.
orange tree into an apple tree. Thank you kindly. If you try to do that, somebody in the equation doesn't look like they got good sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you literally have to just say, you know what, I love you, but I gotta let you go. Um, because you killing me. And Tyler Perry used to be real good with the stand up plays back in the day. people say. And so, you remember the show that said, I can do bad all by myself?
Mm-hmm.
Some of us really have to understand that. You don't need nobody to help you not pay the bill. You cannot pay the bill. Does that make sense? I don't need you to help me not pay rent.
Right.
I already can't afford it by my own self, and now I doubly can't afford it because I got you in here and you. Okay, so some some people just have to say, you ain't gonna change, and yeah, I gotta, like,
But I disagree with that, bro. I'm just
I think
saying.
so.
I'm just saying. I was a certain way for a long time, and
And it's
and
not my job. It is not my job to fix you.
I ain't
It is
I
my job
ain't
to fix
I
you.
ain't
And
I
so
ain't blaming you. I
when
ain't
you're
blaming
ready
you.
to change, then call me. But I'm after a while, because after a while,
I only
your
need my day ones. You went out. You went out for a second.
no, your rottenness makes me rotten. And so if I'm in the bag with you, after a while, now we both
I
in here
agree. I
go
agree.
bad. And
I
so
agree. But
sometimes,
it takes somebody.
sometimes, listen, sometimes God has to work in the dark alone.
Okay.
He don't need nobody else's help, right? And so yeah,
I
you can
can't
stay
argue
in
with
a
that.
situation with a person, but you have to let that person know. One time my mother said this to me and it scared me because I kind of knew what she meant and I ain't like it. She said to me, she said, "You know what? I'm gonna let God deal with you." Now wait a minute, mom. I knew she wasn't giving up on me,
Right.
but I knew at this point she realized there are some things that you need that I can't help you with. I'm not going to leave you, but I'm going to give you the who I know can help you. And so some people, you need to give them over to the counselor, over to the psychiatrist, over, to the rehab or whatever. You need to.
All right, y'all. We gonna give Clarence an applause. He put a point on the board for himself for that one. So Clarence, we 1-1 with that one. Amber said,
We got.
"Everyone on my 600-pound life has deep trauma." I guess she's a fan of the show. Amber, don't end up on the show. Um, if you have some trauma,
So Amber,
we got to deal with that.
love the show. I do. Study. I do, man. And you know what? I don't look at it to laugh. A lot of people find it funny. I don't. I always try to find what was the cause to this effect because now I'm always trying to research this field. And so it's like, man, you know what else I realize that most of the people on there, anybody who watching know this, they all got somebody. All of them, 98% of them with somebody. Ain't that something? But
Yeah.
God bless.
Bro,
God
we got
bless.
these comments rolling in, bro. You can take this next one. What advice do you have for younger adults, millennials, who are just beginning to unpack and process traumatic experiences from youth that ultimately influence our identity and how we behave? Wow. I wish I would have took that one, but I said you can have that one. So go ahead. You need me to read
Read
it
it for
again?
one more time. Yes, sir.
What advice do you have for younger adults, millennials, who are just beginning to unpack or process traumatic experiences from youth that ultimately influence our identity and how we behave? So those traumatic experiences
Yeah.
that you shake. When I became a young adult, I realized I don't want to be a drug dealer, right? But that's all East Baltimore taught me how to be. And
Right.
so I guess he's saying, like, how do you begin to shake that identity that you once had coming from trauma, now being free from it and not knowing where to go?
You know what for me? It amounted to loving myself. Here's what I needed. I had to realize just because I like I was accepted by everybody else didn't mean I like what I saw for myself. And when I had those,
Unpack that real quick.
I will. When I had those childhood experiences with which kind of hung over into my adult life, it was because everybody else was trying to make me something that I did not want to be. And so you force a person into a situation and as a child, and they have no right to say no, right? And so now here they are as an adult, trying to hide, though, if I understand what he's saying, hide those experiences in order to live as who they are in society. And so, for example, imagine you wanting to read a book, but your father wanted you to play sports,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so he's aggressive and upset because you'd rather pick up a book than to pick up a football or basketball. Those as When I became a millennial, it's like, well, is it okay to read a book, or do I have to do this? Is it okay to be, a designer, or do I have to be an architect? Trying to live in a
Mm-hmm.
space where maybe I never wanted to be a doctor, or maybe I never wanted to be a teacher, but I had to because of what
That's
they told me,
surrounding.
and
Yep.
it
Yep.
was traumatic for me.
So yeah, my advice would be to find out who you are. And take your 20s to do so. And I know that sounds, in a capitalist society, it sounds like you don't have time. I really wish I would have took. I've done so much in my 20s. And I'm not gonna ripple it off. I've done so much in my 20s that now everyone's getting serious about their career and their profession. And I'm trying to figure out who I am, what I like to do, and where I want to be in life. And so you really have to take that time to really decipher what part is you and what part is where you come from, in order to develop into a well-rounded adult. And again, we have some resources that's going to help you as well. We have a young adult book that we're co-authoring that's coming out, that will be able to be some resources for you.
Very true.
I want
Scarlett
we
asked
get
another question.
uh
Let me get some questions in over here. I'm blowing up.
Oh yeah, okay, you
Uh,
are too. Everyone, please bear with us. I want to make sure we get through all of the comments and questions and everything. I don't want to slight anyone because of time. If you need to go, we understand, but we do ask that you stay with us, because this may be something that'll help you in this time. Go ahead, Clint.
Scarlett asked another question. She said, she is basically asking about constantly being on the go for others, or be the go-to for others to vent to. She wants advice on how to cope. Oh
Mm,
man, did you want to take
yeah,
on that one for me?
yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm that person. And you have to learn how to fill your own picture. And I went through this for a long time because Clarence is a pastor now, but Clarence knows, when I was 19, I was licensed to minister and preach, and I was ordained at 23, and I was doing a lot
right.
of preaching and doing a lot of teaching, and I had this great gift, but nobody was really teaching me. Nobody was really fueling me, and so I was taking on all this stuff, with people going through, and even as a teacher, taking in that secondhand trauma that I was talking about earlier, taking on all of this stuff, I had no real source, and so you have to find that source, and that replenishing environment for you, and you also need to learn how to set boundaries,
Yeah.
and boundaries are not a dirty word or a bad word. Boundaries are for your emotional health, or your emotion and your mental safety, to be able to process information and know when you can and can't take on new things. So that would be my recommendation to you.
Um, I agree completely, but every time I think about situations like that, I think about where does the pitcher, as you put it, go to be refilled. Now everybody got a drink, but and now I'm running low because I didn't listen to everybody, and now I don't have much left for myself. Where does the pitcher go to get more drink? And what I learned was you do have friends who you pour into, but
Mm,
then you have friends who pour into you, right? And once you begin to decipher those kinds of friends, those who you can pour into, and those who are designed to pour into you, I think you'll become stronger. Because here's what you got to realize: that's your gift. If I can just
mm,
say it that way,
mm,
you don't want to get rid of the gift because you have what God has given most people an opportunity to feel, but also listen to people who others wouldn't listen to. That's a gift. So I would say explore the gift, but continue to seek ways of replenishing yourself. And I have Bible to back it up, but I won't go into all that. But keep replenishing yourself so that you can be the best you, not just for other people, but for you too. But I'm telling you, I promise you, if that stopped altogether, you're gonna be somewhere listening, trying to figure out everything all right with you because you just have that heart, you have that gift,
Right.
and you have to explore that gift.
You got some others?
I have, we got to do that one, to Brianna, but I don't think, well, I won't read that one on the live. And then there was some in the chat. Did you get Ava?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back through the ones in the chat. Did you want to do the anonymous ones?
I know we've already gone through those.
Oh, those are the ones you were just going through.
Yeah, well, there was one from earlier in the show. Uh, as a teacher, I've experienced a lot of trauma. I want to fix everyone's situation, which often caused me to burn out myself, break rules on
Yeah, we
behalf
talked
of my
about
kids,
that.
etc. I've done that many times. I'm always in trouble. You ever drive home from work thinking to yourself, you know, you did something today that you're gonna get in trouble for tomorrow, and you just hope that tomorrow never comes, only because you know, as a teacher, you've helped the kid too far, if that makes sense.
Right.
The only solution I have found, someone says, to a teacher trauma is just leaving my work at work. Doesn't help the kids though. And so that was one person. What suggestions do you have for people who have family members who don't realize their trauma affects others? We dealt with that.
We talked about that a
Um,
little bit.
yeah, I think Clarence. I think I understood Clarence's point about us bringing trauma on ourselves. I've made poor decisions that have led me to being traumatized, as and it was my fault. All right. And the last one,
That's
we'll
right.
leave it the way it is.
All right. Yeah, we won't read that comment. So Ava says Ava says, I'm sorry, Ava says cluster trauma. I guess she's dealing with cluster trauma, or it could be a situation where people with high anxiety is dealing with cluster trauma from Corona 19, the murder bees, being home with your kids all day. Lord. And
Have
yeah,
mercy.
you
Y'all hear
know,
my daughter in the background to daddy, 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 daddy.
you have to take time to process that. Um, and that's something that I struggle with because I always want to be the father that I never had. And I'm always on that, and I'm always thinking of that. So sometimes when I feel like I need a moment, I feel guilty about it. Um, and it's just it's a lot. Like when I go to the grocery store, I have to be mindful that I don't bring a virus home to my. So it it's a lot to process. But please be sure that you do so as you experience it. Please take time, at least 5 to 10 minutes a day, to sit with yourself and process the things that are happening in your life to be able to manage and not have that post traumatic stress sort of set in when all of this is over.
Yeah, go for a walk by yourself. Get out of there.
Yeah. Amber, depending on how the other person's trauma affects you, you may also need to escape it. Yeah, I mean, some people's trauma will make situations dangerous for you. And I'm glad you commented on that because I disagreed with Clarence earlier, but I disagreed with him within reason. If you're unsafe and if someone's trauma is posing something on your life, I meant in terms of support. I was kind of being loose.
Yeah,
I do not mean in any way, shape, or form that you should stand near someone or next to someone that is putting your life in a detrimental position or at any position other than advantageous until that person recognizes their own trauma. So I agree with you 100. Tina
yeah,
had to get away from Ike. She just
yeah.
had to.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it's a difference. It's a difference.
It's a difference, you know.
Yeah, when you're
Um,
talking about, say, for example, your spouse's, your husband's or wife's brother or sister was murdered. That's traumatic for them. You have to allow them an opportunity to grieve.
mhm.
And as the spouse, and I tell people this all the time, well, she keep crying over it. Well, I say, well, if you stump your toe on the edge of the dresser, can I tell you how loud to scream?
Mhm.
Can I tell you to stop yelling because it should don't hurt that bad? No, I did not experience that pain. Even though I've experienced that pain before in my own life, it didn't affect me as much as it probably have affected you
Right.
or whatever. And so, that's different. Somebody's, loved one dies and that was traumatic and then whatever. I understand that. But if because they had a abusive father who drank and beat the mother halfway to death, now you think that you're supposed to live in such a situation? No, baby.
Right.
No, 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 no. Now, I'm not telling you. Now, you can pray for them. I'm not telling you to divorce them. I'm just telling you to run to safety. That's all I'm saying.
Hmm.
And I'll end it off on that.
Yeah, that's good. We have a comment that says, "Be selfless and selfish, and know when and where to allow them to be. It's okay to be selfish." Um,
Yeah,
and it is. It really is okay to be selfish. Within reason. Again, we always have to make sure that we're mindful of what we say. I do think a form of trauma can be full self-centeredness, and selfish insinuates that you semi care for self. I would prefer the term self care. You have to care for yourself, and you have to know what your needs are in order to be able to care for yourself. Um,
yeah,
a part of my morning routine is that, when I'm sleeping, my brain does not there's no days off for my brain. And so when I wake
right.
up, there's 1,000 things that are waiting for me. My kids can't be waking up when I wake up because I have 1,000 thoughts waking up and 1,000 questions waking up at the same time.
At the same time, yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah,
have to
yeah, yeah.
structure my day where I can deal with this real, for how, and then so when it's time to do the things that I need to do in my day, I'm able to do that. So
Yeah.
I would consider that to be self care, instead of selfish. Being able to make sure that I'm being responsible enough with my time and my love for self to be able to take care of myself. But absolutely, that's important. Jeanette said yes, praying the universe supports you. Um, Again, we have a comment, but with the knowledge being presented to them, then they make the choice to ignore the facts and live on their excuses. So they're making the conscious choice. Yeah, we talked about that a bit. Uh, it's not about fixing anything, though. It's about knowledge. Absolutely. I know he said last. Sometimes the best help you can give is planting the seed. Whether someone waters it or not is between them and God. Yeah, that's important. And that's
Major.
go
That's
ahead,
big.
Clarence.
Now I was just gonna say that's
No
big.
God,
The
I know
Bible
God, your
says, if
boy.
I can just, huh?
I know God, your boy. So go ahead.
Right. I was just going. I had to jump. The Bible does say, one man plants, another man waters, and God provides the increase. So you sitting there waiting for the harvest, and you're not supposed to eat the fruit off that tree.
Mm,
You was just supposed to plant the seed to tell them you need to start being a good person,
hmm.
you know, and move on. It's not your job to plant to plant and water and provide the increase. No, and now some of you guys are holding on to situations. If I can just be candid again, some of you holding on to situations saying the reason I'm not leaving is because of all that I've invested,
Hmm.
or the reason I'm not. I'm not telling you have to leave. You just have to allow God or others to do the pouring. And so, what if he goes to fellas night? If you're a woman of God, pray that when he gets there, that everything, if you really trust God, you'll believe that everything that shouldn't be there or everything that would tempt him would be, and it would be a growing session and not another kind of session.
Yeah.
And so I think that it is important to remember that it is not your job, even in a marriage, it's not always your job to do all the heavy lifting. No, sometimes you have to allow the people around your spouse to help you lift.
Yeah. Thank you all for staying. We have just a few more comments to get through, and then we're going to wrap this up. I really don't want you to leave before you get the mental moment from Clarence. This is the moment that he works on for all week, so it's something intentional to wrap this up. It's kind of like the benediction for church. Uh,
That's exactly
uh,
what it is.
Scarlett,
Don't, and
Scarlett
y'all
said,
can't leave for the benediction.
Scarlett says, sorry, here's my last question. Don't be sorry for asking questions, is what we're here for. What do you do when you don't personally feel trauma and you are in a happy place, but someone is constantly venting to you about their own trauma slash hijacking your time. Again, it comes down to that self care, and you have to be okay with caring for yourself. You have to. If I don't go to work, my kids are going to be impacted by some way. I won't say they won't eat because that's not true, right? But they will be impacted. And so I have to care for myself enough to be able to get up and do what I'm supposed to do so that I can care for them. And a lot of times, again, like Clarence said, it may just be your gift and you not know what you how to operate in it and how to carve out and compartmentalize is what I call it, because a lot of times, like for me, people can pour things on me, and I don't want when I'm going through something for people to not think that I can't be there for them, because I know how to compartmentalize. I know how to keep a space available for when people need me, etc. in my own self, and that just comes with time and practice. But you got to be able to prioritize your time for yourself to be able to be there for anyone.
Absolutely.
Got anything, CJ?
No, 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 no.
Okay. You got this one then. Learning to love yourself is so damn hard. At least for me, it is. It has been for me. And that father thing you mentioning is so damn real, and that makes it even harder. Spitting that hot fire. So you want to comment on self love, Clarence, and then we'll see if there's one more comment, then we'll wrap up.
All right. Those are two. When you don't love yourself, you don't really like anybody else around you because you can't figure out why they so happy or why they think they cute when really you think they cute. You have yet. I have been there so many times, or so much of my life where I wanted to change everything about me in order to. And here's what it came down to. It came down to honestly accepting that I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, not just in a relationship per se, but even with family. My family know enough about me to know that he going to be who he is. I'm not disrespectful. I'm not mean. I'm not cantankerous. I used to be in order to protect people from hurting me, but I'm not that way anymore. But I had to learn that the reason I don't love myself is because I'm waiting for you to tell me that I look good, or I'm waiting for you to validate how I feel about me. If you want to walk outside with a bunny suit on and you think you're the sexiest thing that God sliced, then you get you a bunny suit and start walking because at the end of the day, somebody gonna have something to say about it, whether you the bunny seat or the lawyer. Here's what I had to learn. They gonna say, you went to law school, you got married, now they're gonna say, where the babies? Where the house? You get the babies, you get the house, then they're gonna say, where the vacation house? They're always gonna want something. You have to realize that life will stop spinning on its axis once you close your eyes. I learned this. I learned this when you go on to be with the Lord or wherever your final resting place is. Um, when you get there, what'll happen is everybody down here, even on your job, they're gonna move on. They're gonna get a new person to fill your spot and this and that. You have to realize love is starts with you. Love it. Love it. I used to say I got some big lips, but then you know what helped me though, Rob? You know what helped me?
What?
Cooking myself. And anybody
Mm-mm.
who know what Joning is, that's what helped me when I cooked myself. And when you're able to love yourself enough to laugh at yourself, then you know you got it. So I
Yeah,
hope you
man,
get there. I
that's
hope you
so
get there
important. And what I tell people, man, is you are the only person that is with you for 24 hours a day.
all day.
Anything anybody else has to say is a glimpse of what they perceive. And
Yeah.
until
And
you
what
can
you
look at
shown them.
yourself and say, I love you because I'm with you 20. I know your thought patterns. I know when you mess up. I know when you succeed. I know all of the effort that when you get to a point where you love that picture, you love the imperfections in that picture. It's not framed the best. You ain't used the best paint. You used whatever canvas you had, but you made the
Yeah.
best picture that you could. When you and that's a process. That took me 6 months, full time, being in my basement every day by myself to get to that point. I don't ever want you to think that's easy,
Right.
But I told myself I wasn't leaving my basement until I could do that, until I could love myself. So I wasn't providing for my family until I could do that. I wasn't entertaining anybody that wanted to see me. They had to come in my basement. And I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying that that's the level of work that you have to start to embrace and embody for yourself in order to be able to get to that place where you can look at yourself and say trauma and all. There's a Beyonce song. Um, that I really love. And the chorus goes, "I don't know why you love me, but that's why I love you." I sing that to myself.
Mhm.
Um, Tiffany says, "I am healing now because I wanted to be healed from all those traumatic experiences. I asked God to heal me. It's important to not allow those traumatic experiences to define who I am." I just want to say really quickly, Tiffany, and this will be a contrary statement or a conflicting statement, so I'll dress it up. You don't depend on God to heal you. Give God the space to work in your life so that He can reveal to you how to heal yourself. Everything God needs you to have, He's already put inside of you. He does not have to do any maintenance. He does not have to do any follow up. There's no expiration date on your cognitive ability and things that he's put inside of you already. I would ask God to show you what is inside of you that's needed to heal yourself. And he'll begin to heal yourself, and he'll begin to illuminate for those who prescribe to the faith of a hierarchy being. He'll begin to illuminate those things inside of you that are going to help you to heal, because those things that you need are within you. So I say that because a lot of times we pray for a hocus pocus, and we get disappointed when we don't receive that. It's a lot of hard work to heal from traumatic experiences. It's a lot of hard work to heal from traumatic experiences.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work to heal from traumatic experiences. And they did not hocus pocus on our lives, so they won't hocus pocus away. But I encourage you to continue that work. Continue praying and ask God to give you the guidance and strength to be able to endure that work. But I do want you to get moving, and not to say the way that you aren't, but just to say to anyone else, you got to get moving to begin that healing.
Yeah.
You good, Clarence, on that?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, that was good.
All right, preacher boy. Just a few quick comments. Ava said, "People will talk no matter what you say, no matter what, so you may as well do what you want." Jasmine Brown said, "Yes, that's very true. I never thought about that." Um, Paris said, "You said those exact words to me a few months ago." Paris is one of my. I coached him in wrestling. He's a phenomenal guy. I'm glad to see him here on the live. Um, Flaws and all. Yes, Albany. That's the song. That's my song. I don't know why you love me. Anyway, 6 months of you ignoring the world to love yourself. Yes, that was hard, but again, is what I needed to do, bouncing back from the some things that I had going on in my life. Before we close out with Clarence, I want to show you guys our merch at the expense of all my sweat. This is our Go M.I.A shirt. We will have this available for you. We will be giving these away to some people that have been in the chats and been on the video several times. We will be corresponding with you to get you a shirt. If you are interested in shirts, there will be a link to you on next week's video to be able to purchase a shirt in different colors for you. We thank you all for staying over late. We are going to close now with Clarence in the mental moment. As always, guys, I'm Robert A. Douglas. Be radical, be you, and we will see you next week. Clarence, close us out.
Hey guys, a lot of us are still dealing with stuff, and you're saying to yourself, "I tried everything y'all said. I have gone through every prescription, everything to get over my situation, and nothing has worked." Every time I think about something that I've been wrestling with and dealing with, and I just haven't gotten over, I can only be taken back to Paul. And he had this thorn. Most of y'all know he had this thorn. And he said, "I have a thorn in my flesh I can't seem to overcome." We don't know what that thorn was, right? We don't know whether it was because he did something or because something was hurting on him. Either way, he still had to carry that thing. You know why? Because God says, "Paul, whatever you go through, my grace will be sufficient." And so the last thing, I only thing I want to leave you with is this final thing. Whatever it is, even if it's a rough night or early morning, know that you have somebody, whatever you call them, walking with you. and there will be a brighter day, man. So whatever the thorn is, you're gonna keep it. Even if God say it's your lot, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well. I'll talk to you guys in a week. God bless you. Take care. Peace.